a racist woman mocks a black boy's clothes in public, humiliating him in front of everyone, until she realizes he's the son of her powerful boss. What happens next will leave you speechless. The morning sun filtered through the windows of Cloverdale Mall, where shoppers bustled about, clutching shopping bags and sipping coffee. Among them was Emily Hartman, a well-dressed woman in her early 40s, her designer heels clicking against the polished tile floor. With a latte in one hand and a boutique bag in the other, Emily moved with an air of superiority, her nose slightly upturned as she surveyed the people around her. As she passed by the food court, her gaze landed on a young black boy sitting alone at a small table, clutching a brown paper bag. His clothes were faded and ill-fitting, an old oversized hoodie with fraying cuffs and sneakers that had seen better days. He carefully unwrapped a sandwich, his fingers trembling slightly, as though he were aware of the eyes lingering on him. Emily stopped in her tracks, her lips curling into a disdainful smile. She tilted her head, loud enough for the nearby shoppers to hear. "Wow, look at those clothes," she sneered. "Did your mom find those in a dumpster sale?" The boy froze, his eyes darting up to meet hers. He looked no older than 10, with warm brown skin and soft, intelligent eyes that now brimmed with confusion and hurt. His small frame seemed to shrink under her gaze. "I'm talking to you," Emily pressed, her voice dripping with mockery. "Do you even own clothes that fit? Or is this some kind of thrift store fashion show?" A few passers-by slowed, their expressions a mixture of shock and discomfort. No one intervened, though, a familiar, disheartening silence that spoke louder than words. The boy's cheeks flushed as he swallowed hard, his small hands clenching the edge of the table. He finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "There's nothing wrong with my clothes, Mom. They're clean, and they keep me warm." The calm dignity in his response seemed to catch Emily off guard for a moment, but she quickly recovered, laughing loudly. "Oh, how noble. Do you rehearse those lines in front of a mirror before you come out in public looking like that?" The boy lowered his gaze, his small shoulders sagging under the weight of her words. The sound of her laughter echoed in his ears as Emily tossed her coffee cup into a nearby trash can and sauntered off, leaving him alone at the table. But as she walked away, she caught a glimpse of a tall man in a sharp suit approaching the boy. His stride was confident, his face stern. Something about him seemed familiar, though she couldn't quite place where she had seen him before. Emily shrugged it off, dismissing the boy and his mysterious companion as irrelevant. Unbeknownst to her, the wheels of karma had just begun to turn. Later that afternoon, Emily stepped into her office at Whitmore and Company, the sleek marketing agency where she had worked for over a decade. Her desk sat near the expansive windows, offering a panoramic view of the city skyline, a constant reminder of the status she believed she'd earned through years of hard work and networking. As she placed her designer bag on her desk, her colleague Monica leaned over the partition with a conspiratorial grin. "Did you hear? Mr. Whitmore is introducing someone new at the meeting today. Rumor has it, it's his son." Emily's perfectly arched brows furrowed. "His son? I thought his family stayed out of the business," she said, brushing imaginary lint off her tailored blazer. Monica shrugged. "That's what I thought too, but apparently he's back in town, and Mr. Whitmore is grooming him for leadership." The thought of a newcomer, even if it was the boss's son, made Emily bristle with unease. She prided herself on her seniority and influence in the office, and the idea of someone swooping in to claim a position of power didn't sit well. She smoothed her hair, determined to make a strong impression on whoever this new figure was. The staff gathered in the sleek conference room, its glass walls reflecting the room's polished decor. Emily took her usual spot near the head of the table, close enough to signal her importance, but not so close as to appear presumptuous. Mr. Whitmore, a tall, commanding man in his mid-50s, entered with his usual air of authority. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began, his deep voice silencing the murmurs in the room. "As you all know, I've always believed in nurturing leadership from within this company. Today, I'm proud to introduce someone very special to me, my son, Aaron Whitmore." Emily glanced toward the door as it opened, expecting to see a sharply dressed young man with the same commanding presence as his father. Her confident smile faltered as her breath caught in her throat. It was the boy from the mall. Her eyes widened in disbelief as the boy she had humiliated earlier stepped into the room, now dressed in a crisp white shirt, black slacks, and polished shoes. He held himself with poise, his chin slightly raised, though there was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes as he scanned the room. Emily felt her stomach drop. Her mind raced, piecing together the connection. This boy, no, this young man, was not just some random kid in shabby clothes. He was the son of the man who owned the very company she worked for. "Thank you, Dad," Aaron began, his voice clear and steady. "I'm excited to learn from all of you and contribute to the incredible work this team does. My father has told me so much about each of you, and I look forward to getting to know you all." Emily's face burned as Aaron's gaze briefly met hers. There was no anger or bitterness in his eyes, just a quiet recognition that made her chest tighten. Did he remember her? Surely he must. "As we continue to grow as a company," Mr. Whitmore continued, "I'm relying on all of you to support Aaron as he transitions into this role. He'll be shadowing different departments over the coming weeks, so please ensure he feels welcome." The meeting concluded, and the team filed out. Emily lingered at her seat, her thoughts a tangled mess. How could she face him now? The very person she had mocked so cruelly mere hours ago was now poised to have influence over her professional future. As she rose to leave, she felt a presence beside her. Turning, she found Aaron standing there, his expression calm but unreadable. "Ms. Hartman, right?" he said, his tone polite. Emily swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Yes, that's correct. Welcome to the company, Aaron. It's wonderful to have you here." Aaron tilted his head slightly, his eyes studying her. "Thank you. I think I've seen you before. Maybe earlier today?" The room seemed to spin as Emily struggled to respond. "Oh, I'm not sure. I was out running errands earlier, so maybe," she stammered, her usual composure unraveling. Aaron held her gaze for a moment longer, his face betraying no hint of emotion. Then he smiled faintly. "Perhaps. Anyway, I'm looking forward to working with you." With that, he walked away, leaving Emily rooted to the spot, her heart pounding in her chest. This was only the beginning. The next few days were a blur for Emily. She couldn't focus on her work, couldn't shake the memory of Aaron's quiet composure, or the way she had treated him at the mall. Every meeting where he was present felt like a minefield, her nerves fraying with each passing moment. Aaron wasn't like the typical young adults she'd encountered, entitled or arrogant due to their family connections. Instead, he was calm, observant, and humble. He listened more than he spoke, taking notes as he shadowed each department. His attitude only heightened Emily's guilt, leaving her stomach in knots. On a Wednesday afternoon, Emily was seated at her desk, trying to focus on a campaign pitch she was set to present the following day. But no matter how much she tried to concentrate, her thoughts drifted back to Aaron. Every time she pictured his face, those calm, intelligent eyes meeting hers, it was like a mirror reflecting her own shame. The weight of her actions began to fester, growing heavier with each passing hour. Emily had always prided herself on being professional, but the cruel way she had mocked that boy, no, this boy, felt so out of character, even for her sharp tongue. Why had she done it? Was it boredom, a need to feel superior? She didn't want to admit it, but deep down, she knew the truth. Her actions had been driven by prejudice, by an unconscious bias she hadn't wanted to acknowledge. That evening, Emily stayed late at the office, hoping to avoid running into Aaron. But as she gathered her things and walked toward the elevator, she saw him standing near the windows, his phone in hand. He was alone, the city lights casting a faint glow on his face. Emily hesitated, torn between the urge to leave and the gnawing need to address the growing pit of guilt in her chest. Summoning her courage, she approached him cautiously. "Aaron?" she said softly, her voice hesitant. He turned to her, his expression neutral. "Yes, Ms. Hartman?" Emily's throat tightened. I wanted to apologize for the way I spoke to you the other day at the mall." Aaron tilted his head slightly, his gaze unwavering. "So, you do remember me?" he said, his tone calm but firm. Emily's heart sank. "I do, and I've been thinking about it ever since. The way I treated you was wrong, cruel even. I don't know what came over me, but I want you to know that I'm sorry, truly." For a moment, Aaron said nothing. The silence felt like an eternity to Emily, who stood there, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Finally, Aaron spoke, his voice quiet but resolute. "Do you know what hurt the most about that moment, Ms. Hartman?" Emily shook her head, unable to find her voice. "It wasn't the words you said," Aaron continued. "It was how easily everyone else looked away, like it was normal, like I didn't matter. That kind of indifference hurts more than words ever could." His words pierced through Emily, leaving her breathless. She had never considered the ripple effect of her actions, that her cruelty had not only hurt Aaron, but had also emboldened the bystanders to do nothing. "I can't change what I did," she said softly, her voice cracking. "But I want to make it right. Please, tell me how I can." Aaron studied her for a moment, then gave a small, tired smile. "Change doesn't come from just one apology. It comes from what you do afterward, how you treat people every day. You don't owe me anything, Ms. Hartman. Just try to be better. That's all anyone can ask." Emily nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I will," she whispered. "Thank you for giving me that chance." Aaron glanced out at the city lights once more. "Everyone deserves a chance," he said, almost to himself. Then, with a polite nod, he excused himself, leaving Emily standing there, her heart heavy yet strangely lighter. For the first time in years, Emily felt something shift deep within her, a resolve to face the prejudices she had ignored for so long and to ensure that moments like the one at the mall would never happen again. But little did she know, the story wasn't over yet. The next morning, Emily arrived at the office with a different energy. She had spent the night reflecting on Aaron's words and what they truly meant. It wasn't enough to feel guilty. She needed to take action, to show that she was capable of change. Her first opportunity came during a team brainstorming session for a high-profile marketing campaign. The team was discussing ideas for a luxury client, and as usual, Emily was quick to take the lead. But when Aaron, sitting quietly in the corner, hesitantly raised his hand to contribute, Emily noticed the way others barely acknowledged him. "Actually," Emily said, interrupting the flow of the conversation, "I'd like to hear Aaron's thoughts. He's been observing us for a while now, and a fresh perspective could be exactly what we need." All eyes turned to Aaron, who blinked in surprise before sitting up straighter. "Oh, sure. Well, I was just thinking, instead of focusing solely on exclusivity, maybe we could highlight how the brand connects people. A shared experience feels more authentic, and that might appeal to a broader audience." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "That's an excellent point, Aaron. I think we've been too focused on the product's status. Let's explore how we can incorporate this angle into the campaign." The team murmured in agreement, and Emily caught the faint smile that tugged at Aaron's lips. It wasn't much, but she knew it was a step toward rebuilding trust. Over the following weeks, Emily made a conscious effort to include Aaron in conversations, ensuring his voice was heard in meetings and crediting his ideas when they resonated with the team. She also started reflecting on her interactions with others, catching herself whenever old biases crept in. But her path to redemption wasn't without challenges. One afternoon, Monica approached Emily with a knowing smirk. "You've been awfully cozy with the boss's son lately," she said, her tone laced with suspicion. "Trying to stay in his good graces." Emily stiffened. "It's not like that, Monica. I just think Aaron has a lot to offer, and we should give him the respect he deserves." Monica raised an eyebrow. "Respect? He's just a kid playing dress-up because Daddy owns the company. I wouldn't waste my time." Emily felt anger bubble up, but instead of lashing out, she took a deep breath. "That kind of attitude is exactly the problem, Monica. Maybe instead of tearing people down, you should take the time to listen. You might learn something." Monica scoffed, but said nothing more, leaving Emily standing in the hallway. The encounter only strengthened her resolve to do better, not just for Aaron, but for herself. The real test came during an end-of-quarter presentation, where Aaron was set to deliver a proposal he had been working on. It was a daunting task for someone so young and new to the team, and Emily could see the nervous energy in his movements as he prepared. When the day arrived, the conference room was packed. Mr. Whitmore himself was present, seated at the head of the table, watching intently as Aaron stepped up to the projector. "Good morning, everyone," Aaron began, his voice steady but quiet. "I'd like to share my ideas for how we can expand our reach while maintaining the integrity of the brand." As he spoke, Emily noticed how some of her colleagues exchanged skeptical glances, their expressions dismissive. Her chest tightened with frustration. Halfway through Aaron's presentation, one of the senior executives interrupted with a condescending smile. "That's an interesting idea, Aaron. But don't you think it's a little idealistic? This is a business after all. We're here to make money." The room tensed, and Aaron hesitated, his confidence wavering. Emily couldn't stay silent. "I disagree," she said firmly, all eyes turning to her. "Aaron's proposal highlights something we've been missing, a way to connect with customers on a deeper level. It's not just about making money, it's about building a lasting relationship with the audience. And in the long run, that's what drives loyalty and revenue." The executive frowned but didn't argue further. Emily turned to Aaron and gave him a small nod, encouraging him to continue. When Aaron finished his presentation, the room was silent for a moment, before Mr. Whitmore began clapping. "Well done, Aaron. I think you're onto something here. Let's develop this further." The room followed his lead, and Aaron smiled, his shoulders relaxing as relief washed over him. As the team dispersed, Aaron approached Emily, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," he said quietly. Emily shook her head. "No, Aaron. Thank you. You reminded me what leadership really means." For the first time, she saw a genuine smile from Aaron, one that reached his eyes. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. A few weeks had passed since Aaron's presentation, and the atmosphere at Whitmore and Company was beginning to shift. Aaron had proven himself to be more than just the boss's son. His fresh ideas and thoughtful approach had started to earn him the respect of the team, even from those who were initially skeptical. But for Emily, her journey wasn't about Aaron's acceptance alone. It was about living up to the promise she had made to herself, to be better, every day, in both her personal and professional life. One Friday afternoon, Mr. Whitmore gathered the team for a surprise announcement. The conference room buzzed with anticipation as the staff filed in, curious about what their boss had planned. Emily took her usual spot near the middle of the table, but this time, she noticed Aaron sitting at the head of the room beside his father. "First of all," Mr. Whitmore began, "I want to thank everyone for their hard work over the past few months. This has been one of our most productive quarters, and it's all thanks to the incredible talent in this room." Polite applause rippled through the room before Mr. Whitmore continued, his tone taking on a more personal note. "But today, I want to celebrate someone who has truly exemplified what this company stands for: creativity, integrity, and leadership. Aaron has been shadowing all of you to learn the ropes, and I'm proud to say he's shown incredible promise." Emily joined in the applause, a genuine smile on her face as she looked at Aaron. But then Mr. Whitmore turned toward her, his next words taking her completely by surprise. "There's one person in particular who has stood out, not just for their contributions to the company, but for their ability to recognize and support new talent. Emily, I'd like to thank you for being a mentor to Aaron and for helping him find his footing here. Your actions haven't gone unnoticed." Emily's heart skipped a beat as the entire room turned to look at her. For a moment, she didn't know what to say, but then she caught Aaron's gaze. He was smiling at her, not with hesitation, but with genuine warmth and gratitude. "It's been a privilege, Mr. Whitmore," Emily said, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "Aaron has taught me just as much as I've taught him." The room applauded again, and Emily felt a deep sense of pride, not just in herself, but in the transformation she had worked so hard to achieve. Later that day, as the office emptied for the weekend, Emily found herself walking past Aaron's desk. He was packing up his things, humming softly to himself. "Heading out?" she asked, her tone light. Aaron looked up and nodded. "Yeah. My dad and I have plans tonight." Emily hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Aaron, I just want you to know that your words, they made me take a hard look at myself, and I'm better for it. So, thank you." Aaron regarded her thoughtfully, then extended his hand. "Thank you for giving me a chance, Ms. Hartman." She shook his hand, feeling a weight lift from her chest. "Call me Emily," she said with a small smile. As Aaron walked away, Emily stood there for a moment, reflecting on how much had changed. The boy she had once dismissed and mocked had become a catalyst for her own growth. She didn't just see the world differently now, she saw herself differently. And for the first time in years, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that change wasn't just possible, it was necessary. Emily's story wasn't just about redemption, it was about the power of humility and self-awareness. One small act of cruelty had forced her to confront the prejudices she didn't even realize she held, and in doing so, she had found a path to not only repair the damage, but also to become a better person. In the end, she learned that leadership wasn't about status or authority. It was about listening, learning, and showing kindness, even when it wasn't easy. And Aaron, he continued to thrive, proving to everyone that strength and dignity could shine even in the face of adversity.